Hey there, and welcome back again to YAS, a stripper podcast. On this podcast, we'll discuss how classifying each other as people and workers is dangerous to society and marginalized groups of people. We'll also talk about the climate in and outside of the strip clubs and all of the amazing things that strippers do. And of course, we'll talk about all of the things in between. I'm your queen, A.M. Davies, and this is YAS, a stripper podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back. It's YAS, a stripper podcast, your favorite podcast. Thanks so much for continuously tuning in. I feel like we're really on a roll here. I've been feeling really special vibes with this podcast lately. I feel like we've been really getting some really important information out there regarding the stripper strike movement, regarding industry reform. And just talking about how amazing strippers are. It's just my favorite thing to do is talk to these people. And something that really is special to me are strippers that once hated strippers before they knew anything about strippers. Because I feel like there's some of our most powerful allies and advocates for shifting perception of the society that we had been forced to acclimate to without our own permission. And then when you finally wake up and you realize that you have been plugged into some bullshit that you never agreed to, you can be some of the most powerful voices, because you can speak to those people and you can relate to those people and you can say things like, I've been there before, I know how you feel. And then you can also relate to them how it feels when you fucking wake up, because it can be traumatizing. You're like, oh my God, I've been lied to, I've been tricked this whole time. And you feel like my sister is going through that with her education system, feeling like these schools have lied to her and tricked her the whole time, because they have, they have. And so finding people that like wake up to that, they're my most favorite allies and messengers, because they have so much to teach you. So we have someone just like that here on this episode today. Today we're talking to Phoenix, and she is a person who hated strippers turned stripper.
Yay!
Yay!
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
You're
Very
so
excited to
welcome.
be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I just loved your story, and I would love for you to
Thanks.
tell everyone where you're calling from, where it is that you reside, and that story that you emailed me about
Right.
your transformation. We would love to hear.
Right. Well, my name's Phoenix Rose. I am from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. I started pole dancing in 2013. And at that time, I was like newly sober. I've been sober for 8 years. I was like searching for a new activity to fill the void, if you will. And I went to see Cirque du Soleil, and I was a former gymnast, a rhythmic gymnast. So I saw all these people in the air and doing these amazing things. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. I want to be in the air. And I took some circus classes, and then I took some pole classes, was immediately obsessed and completely addicted. But I had this like block, this thing against exotic dance, where I thought like, well, I am a real artist. I don't wear the heels. Like I'm like a circus, whatever I fucking thought about myself. And I kind of said it. It's not that I had hate in my heart. I just kind of said it without thinking about it.
Right.
And that, I think, is where most people, or a lot of people, are in terms of their like core phobia. They don't even know that that's how they think. And it's like, so anyways, the more I got into pole, the more classes I took, I started to realize like, yeah, tricks are fine, but if I want to learn the art form, if I want to learn to pole dance, I'm going to learn it in the exotic dance classes, because that's where the style that's readily practiced by most pole dancers originated. And at that time, exotic dance was very much still taboo in the pole world. We had like one exotic dance class, or one level, and it wasn't like how it is now, where there's like many different styles. Anyway, so I took this class and immediately was just fell in love with the style, and I started to kind of examine why I had these biases. I'm like, well, why do I think that wearing heels is somehow bad or gross, or like that I'm better if I don't? And I started to uncover my own internalized misogyny, and also all the shame that I had about my own body, just from, having been an alcoholic for my whole life, and just constantly being in these situations where I had no control over my body and at all, and kind of realizing I never really consented to any sexual experience that I had had.
Mm.
And this art form taught me to have power over my body, to love my body, to express myself in a way that felt the most authentic and true to me. And that eventually, I started teaching. I started almost exclusively teaching exotic dance classes, and it really became the style that I was most interested in. And then eventually led me to being a stripper, and then eventually led me to making all this art about being a stripper, because like you said, I understand where a lot of people are coming from with their whorephobia, because I was there too. And it's not like a malicious thing, but we need to uncover what society is telling us about women and about sex workers, and realize this complete and utter bullshit, because I've been on both sides of that coin, and I can kind of see. Yeah.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, and exactly like you say, it's not, I don't get mad at people who are struggling with whorephobia anymore, because I
Mm-hmm.
recognize that, like I've been saying, we were thrust into the system without our permission, and we were conditioned.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to you as a free thinker, or as someone who can listen to others' perspectives, to question the system.
Yes.
Yeah, because like, who made this system? Whose idea was that? It's not my
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. And I have to say that most of the kind of like negativity or whatever that I've received from people in my life for being a stripper was usually from other women. And again, I'm not mad at those, like, I'm not angry at those people, because I was there too. And I just never thought about it. Like, why would I think about it? Why would I try and unpack this if I didn't have to? Like, life is complicated enough. So, like, with the art that I made about it, a big part of that was trying to educate or just enlighten people to these stories from these dancers, and kind of get people to like examine their own biases, basically.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So let's talk about your art a little bit. Can you explain some of your exhibits, and what
Hmm.
like the message behind specific ones are? Like, what do you
Right.
want people to interpret?
Well, I will say, like, as an artist, most of my work comes from or is prompted by questions I have, based off a lot of times traumas I've experienced, or like issues that I'm kind of grappling with in my own life, and like I use my art to kind of process that. So it's really interesting. Like, I kind of started stripping full time ish in the fall of 2016, and it was around this time, like, it was like a perfect storm. It was around this time that I was gifted this really small toy camera that made it so I could like shoot in these spaces like strip club change rooms, without people really knowing what I was doing. I mean, I didn't film anyone without their consent. I only
Right.
filmed myself. Around the same time, I was asked to make a piece for my friend Zine that was kind of dealing with a lot of these issues. Um, and yeah, so my first kind of film that I made around this kind of stuff was called Object, and it was again like a piece that I shot in this backstage while I was working, just myself being filmed. And what I was trying to do with that work was explore this idea of objectification, and what kind of was happening to my own relationship to my body by doing the job of being a stripper. Because I I started stripping when I was 33. Which, it's older than most. I
Yeah.
And it was a very unconventional route that I took to being a stripper. So I kind of, and I can tell you more about that later if you want, but I I went in, I know what objectification is, I know what I'm signing up for. and I assumed that I wouldn't get hurt. And then I could feel my relationship to my body start to change, not because of the job of being a stripper, not because of the performative aspect of it and the dance and everything you do on stage. Is more about people in charge criticizing my body, feeling like it didn't matter how good I was at my job. If I didn't fit whatever aesthetic that the club owner thought, then there was something wrong with me. I started to notice I was like obsessing more about surgeries and changing myself and nitpicking and all this stuff. So that was my first kind of work that I made. And then so that to me is a big issue too, because I think that there's some problems with the way that the industry is structured, that we are not valued for how good we are at our job. You know what I mean? I don't feel like if you look a certain way, that makes you sexier than another person that looks different, or that makes you better at having a connection with the audience or any of that stuff. But it seems to be what is valued, which I don't agree with. And then the kind of longer work that was much more in depth was called That's Why I Like It. And it's a it actually originated as a video installation, 3-channel video installation, where I interviewed 9 dancers and I filmed just their butts in slow motion. And so the film is, you hear this edited interview with all these dancers and you see just their butts. And originally I had shot their faces, I had shot other things, and the butt was just, it works the best, it really, because I was like, okay, so men for decades have been putting women in their music videos, and like corporations can use our image to do whatever the fuck they want. But the second that we use our own body to promote our own business or to make money or whatever, or just express ourselves, we're silenced, we're called sluts, there's something wrong with us, all this stuff. So I felt it was an extremely loaded image. And I slowed it down. So it becomes this kind of hypnotic thing. And my goal was to kind of, let the words like wash over you. And actually some of your former guest of yours was actually in that film.
Megan Rippey was on.
Megan Rippey, she was in it. She was awesome. So yeah. She was in that. And who else from LA was in it? Victoria LeBrun, do you know her? Maybe not. There was a few LA dancers, because I had traveled down to LA and shot with some dancers. And like, interesting story about that film, because I've had varying experiences screening this work. Usually when I showed in Canada, people are like very respectful and I get no negativity.
Sure.
When I've shown it in America, it's like I've had some very uncomfortable screenings, like really that have always like, for instance, I screened it in LA and it was the right venue for it at all. It was like with all the other films were total, like just very, they just weren't experimental films, and they were kind of just trying to be like industry, whatever, mainstream stuff. And at the time, the film was like way longer than it is now too. And I went with my sister, who we've never spoken about the fact that I was a stripper, and I just warned her. I was like, just so you know, this is coming. And I could feel, as the film was going on, I could feel people getting uncomfortable. I could hear people like moving in their seats and like whispering to each other there. And then there was a guy behind me, and he kept like whispering and making jokes to his friends, and they were like hee and giggling and all this stuff, and I ignored it. And then at the end of the screening, he just goes, "Oh my God, thank God that's over." And I just like turned around and looked at him, and I was like, "That's my film, you hurt my feelings." And then he shut up. But I was like, wow, okay. And then after the screening, there was a lot of discussion, and actually that guy asked me a question, and as well, like afterwards, I ended up having a really good conversation with my older sister, and she was like, yeah, I felt really uncomfortable. And then, but it kept going on, and I started to examine why I felt uncomfortable and why I was judging these women. And I was like, Kate, that was my complete goal with this work, is just to get people to just think for a second about why they have these beliefs, and are they actually grounded in reality? Because my experience as a stripper tells me that they're not. Yeah. Anyways, long story.
No, it's a beautiful, it's a great story. And it's like, I think that was the perfect venue for that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we make people uncomfortable, and it confuses the shit out of me, because I'm like, you should be the most comfortable around me. I'm never going to judge you. I'm always going to accept you
Mm-hmm.
and love you and help
Mm-hmm.
you, because that's what sex workers do. And so that you're afraid or you're uncomfortable around me, it's like the complete opposite. But I think that it's good, because when you're uncomfortable, you grow. So if they're not uncomfortable, they're not growing. So I think that you made
Mm-hmm.
an entire room uncomfortable is a huge success.
Thanks. It's just interesting because the reaction in America has been so extreme, either hate it or love it, whereas in Canada we're all just like, yes,
Oh,
good
very nice
job.
art.
Just culture shock, I guess.
America
Yeah,
is so fucked.
I'm gonna have to
So
agree with
fucked.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this whole like the whole I'm not gonna go down a rabbit hole. I almost went down a rabbit hole. Stop me now. Stop me now.
Okay.
I need a whole other podcast for how I feel about America, okay, and
Yeah.
patriotism. Anyway, I want to ask you some questions, because I did listen to your work. And well, first of all, okay, so you answered how long you've been stripping and the
Mhm.
projects and your goals and it's,
Well, and to be fair, like, and I do want to acknowledge that again, like my experience in stripping is completely not the typical one. So, yeah, I was able to get a job at the club where I worked because a lot of my friends worked there, and before I got that job, I had done a few shows where I had stripped. Like I had worked as a stripper in these special shows that were completely not the normal experience of working in a club.
right.
So I had some experience, but I also had no experience. So it was kind of like an extremely privileged way to come into the industry that is not at all the norm. And it's kind of why I haven't, since they fired me, we can talk about that too, but I haven't tried to go back into the industry because I guess I'm just spoiled, but it doesn't work for my lifestyle to be traveling and to be, and also I'm like, I don't know, I'm almost 37. I'm tired. Like, I just want my cushy, fancy stripping job I can do like 2 days a week. But I can't make that happen. So I miss it every day. Like every day I'm like, oh, why can't I be a stripper?
I do too.
It's like, I know you feel this too. I'm just like, wow. Because honestly, there's moments on stage where I was just like, I have never felt more myself than I have in this moment. Like, I feel like my whole life has been leading to this moment where I just get to be like free and on stage and expressing myself and people throwing money at me. And yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a nice memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to know why you got fired. Why'd you get fired? What'd you do?
Uh, fucking nothing.
I'm sure.
I was told that I was fired because I don't have fake breasts and that they wanted strippers who looked like strippers with blonde hair and fake boobs. And I'm thinking, and also almost the entire lineup looked exactly like how I looked with like natural breasts and like long dark hair. Like it was,
Yeah.
um, but that being said, like I don't like that's just what I was told. So I don't even know if that's true per se. What I do know and what I've learned, this was a huge lesson for me in terms of like my own boundaries and looking out for myself instead of, trying to please others. Like the first couple months I worked there was like amazing. I loved it. And then for whatever reason, I started having my shifts cut back. So I wasn't working as much. And then I was told, oh, you still work here, but you're going to be on call. So you're going to work the same amount of days, but you won't know until the day of, or maybe the night before. And for me and my lifestyle, like I said, I do a lot of different things. So I really need to know when shit's going down because this is not just like working in a coffee shop. It's like if I'm going to work, I need to know so I can get ready and do my hair and like
Yeah.
make sure I can warm up my body, make sure I haven't scheduled a physio appointment that day. Like it's a big deal. So if
Yeah.
I'm on call, like I can't do that. And I also was kind of existing in this like constant high state of stress because I was like wanting to please them, but not knowing how. And every time I tried to please them. It just kind of backfired. And I remember my show was getting worse because I was stressed out.
Yeah.
I was like, I honestly, like, friends of mine after were like, dude, you were strung out. And being an addict, like, honestly, if I felt like I was a heroin addict, it felt worse than being a drug addict in some ways, just because I was so conscious of it and I was completely powerless. I would have done anything to get on that stage for 20 minutes of sex. Like, I would have done anything. And I didn't give a shit that I was literally destroying my body. Like, I was so skinny. I was like not eating enough. My face was turning gray. I was like, it was bad. And eventually, like, in the same week, I ended up, it was actually funny too, because I kind of started to realize that this was happening and then kind of made a mental switch and was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm doing this because I love performing. I love expressing myself. I don't want to lose that joy. I'm just going to fucking be myself.
Yeah.
So I just started being myself at the club. Like, I was joking around with the clients, and I don't know if me being just showing my personality they didn't like, or I don't know what. I don't know what. But they fired me via text message. I was told it was because I didn't have fake breasts, whatever.
That's what management told you.
Yeah. And yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. And then also in that same week, I injured myself really badly.
Yeah.
My neck and my shoulder, to the point where I had to stop even like pole dancing for fun for almost 2 years. And it was in that time, I basically had a nervous breakdown. I got shingles. I fell apart. And it was interesting. I realized, I'm like, I had become so detached from my true self. It had become completely about pleasing other people, just performing at all costs, like giving too much of myself all the time. And then my identity was wrapped up in being a stripper and being a pole dancer. And I had worked my ass off to get there, and to have that taken away overnight, I felt like, okay, I'm no longer a person. I don't know who I am.
Devastating.
Yeah, it was. But guess what? It led me to make these films. It led me to make the sculptures I'm making,
Like a phoenix who rose from the ashes.
Exactly, you got it. Phoenix rose. That was like, when I came up with that name, it's not even like that original of a name, but I was like, that defines my experience. Like,
yeah,
my whole life it's felt like that, So.
Oh boy, I recall a time as a baby stripper where I also thought I should get my boobs done, and I would like to tell everybody, if you don't know, I have a natural 34 double D on my rack.
What?
All right, yes, and I was like, maybe I should get my boobs done.
It's so funny. I was talking to my boyfriend about this today too, because I've like, I still kind of wrestle with this, and like, you see, and a lot of it is social media, and you see like beautiful girls on the internet, and you're like, wow, like, that's such a cool aesthetic. Like, maybe I want that too. And I go to doctors. I've seen like multiple surgeons, talk to them about it, and then I put in the fake like thing that I put in, and I think I don't like how I look. Like, I'm like, I actually don't even like this look for me, but yet I'm like still obsessing about it. It's a complicated issue. It's complicated.
Well, I think, and it goes back to
Yeah.
like the conditioning that I was talking about, and the things that we see in magazines and the grocery store, and like something that really fucking irks me about the magazines and the grocery store is like these close-up shots of like celebrities and their cellulite, and like just really like pointing out like how much weight they lost and how much weight they gained, and like that's all we see as children. We go into the grocery store, and it's like, and it's normalized, and everyone's walking around like it's normal to examine strangers' bodies in public, to shame you into not having that body. And don't you ever dare look like this, because someday you might be splashed on the cover of a magazine for all to see and to make fun of and to draw circles and put arrows to your body. And then we wonder why we want to. Yeah, and then we wonder why we want to alter it, and why when we look in the mirror, I'm like, I'm fat here and here, and I suck. And it's because of what fucking TV and media and the news and the billboards and the fucking signs, like, stop telling me what I should be.
Exactly.
Sorry,
Yes.
sometimes I get really worked up.
No, I feel you. I really, yeah, and I will say, like, I mean, and there is kind of like a darker side to even just being a pole dancer or being a stripper, is that kind of body obsession. So I just think there's nothing wrong with wanting to look beautiful, but I think it's
Right.
important just to just acknowledge that and just check yourself if you feel like you're going a little bit, if you're obsessing too much. Because like, again, when I injured myself, got fired, I had to stop dancing. At first, like, I gained like 6 pounds and I was freaking out. Like, and at the time I was like underweight. So like I was still quite skinny.
Yeah.
And I started to freak out. I'm like, I'm gonna get fat, I'm gonna get fat, like, and then eventually I was like, whoa, like, okay, I can't go to restaurants. I won't go on vacation because I can't control what I eat. I'm like, all this stuff. And I was like, you know what? Fuck this. Literally, fuck it. I'm just gonna buy one bigger size of pants and just eat some fucking food for a year and like see how that goes. So I like gained like 15 to 20 pounds, like almost like as an experiment to myself, to just
Yeah. So,
learn to love myself even if I was 20 pounds heavier or whatever, and it was like, it was awesome. I
that's
felt great.
you basically like use yourself as your own art and learning exhibit, like your
Yeah,
own body. That's so
basically.
fascinating. Yeah.
And since I've been back to like training pole and dancing and teaching and all that, like I've just noticed, because like, yeah, okay, I'm super fit again, skinny and all that, but the obsession like comes back, and like
Of
I just
course.
notice when I see someone post about whatever, like how, if it affects me in a way where I'm like, oh my god, okay, like I have to like book an appointment for some like really expensive procedure, and like, oh my god, like are my knees getting saggy, are my this or my that, and I'm just like, wow, okay, like this is taking up a lot of energy and time, and
Yeah. I think
I
it's
don't
I
know.
think it's like anything, you have to maintain practice. This is like dieting is
Hmm.
a lifestyle. For me, my diet is a lifestyle. I don't go like, I'm gonna diet and lose weight. I've like figured out my diet that keeps me at this
Hmm.
weight that I'm like, I don't have to work that hard.
Yes.
If I have to work
Yes.
extra hard, oh, anyway. So, but
Yeah.
in the same Z's, for like my personal mental state is like a lifestyle and a practice. And
Hmm.
and when I
Hmm.
find myself going down that hole, I'm like, "Nah, nah, 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 nah," and and
Hmm.
and it gets easier over time. In my early 20s, I mean, I had the extensions with the hot pink and purple streaks in it, and I went tanning, and I
Hmm.
contemplated plastic surgery and like really long fake nails,
Yeah.
like
And I'm not like, I all that stuff is
it's
fine.
cool.
Like,
Yeah.
it's fine. I just am speaking from my own experience, and like I just want people to just not take this stuff lightly or
Right.
feel pressured,
Right.
because I started to feel pressured, and instead of like just knee jerk like, okay, I'm just going to do whatever I think is going to make this person happy, I still explored those ideas too. I wasn't like, no, I will 100% never get my boobs done or never do anything. I was like, okay, I'm having this thought I've never had before. Let's kind of go down that road a little bit and just
Yeah.
learn more information. And I'll talk to a doctor, and I expressed my concerns. Like, I talked to my doctor honestly when I saw her. I was like, I'm dealing with these feelings of like inadequacy, and I'm working as a stripper, and like I feel there's a bit of pressure here, and I'm just trying to figure out if it's something that I want. And she was like, it should definitely be something that's for yourself and not for
Right.
anyone else, because there is a chance if something goes horribly wrong, probably it won't.
Right.
But if you're doing it for someone else, it's going to be a huge regret that you'll always have. So
Yeah.
you just have to be true to yourself and take the time to
Exactly.
understand what that means.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree with you 100%. Like I loved having extensions and fake nails. The tanning
Me
was really,
too.
yeah,
Fuck.
and the tanning though, the tanning I felt very pressured. The tanning I didn't. I liked having the tan, but I also knew that what I was doing was very bad for me. But I was
Hmm.
still taking the risk because I wanted to look good. I wanted to look good over taking the risk. Like that
Yeah.
was more important to me than what
Yeah.
potential health factors I was causing. And
Yeah.
then again, like I said, I was contemplating getting like my tits done, and it's like, why in the hell? And why I contemplated it is because I saw so much of it, and I thought, oh, I maybe that's how I should be. But and now I look at my tits, I'm like, oh my god, thank God I didn't do anything to these, because they're just like so immaculate, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the only reason, like I said, was because there was pressure for me. But the fake
Mhm.
hair, like I would do that. I would get extensions in a heartbeat if I like had just money to burn. I would totally get
Yeah.
extensions right now. Yeah, but
Love extensions.
yes, right. It's just so fun to have long
I
hair, and
miss
that's,
mine so much.
I know, and that's the other thing too that I think that is important for people to understand. Like we put extensions in our hair because like it makes us feel good and it feels nice, you know. And I like to get my nails done because it feels nice, and I can't stand it when people, like when men especially say, "What do you do that to? What do you do that? Like dudes don't like that. Like real dudes don't like that, you know."
Yeah. It's just like, yeah.
I like it, but I like it.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I did have this, like, I want to close because I want to talk about objectification,
Okay.
because you are an artist and you create art that is objectified. I mean, that is what art is. It is objectified by the viewers. And I have this argument that I don't know how many people would really agree with me. But I just love to just take a step back and turn things around and look at it from all angles, right? And so the word objectification for me, I am fine with being objectified, because I recognize when I'm on stage that I am anonymous to whoever just walked in the room and doesn't know me. I am being artistic and creative. I am technically made of carbon and am an object. I am an object, not to be treated like one, but I am one technically. And just as you would in an art gallery, whisper to the friend next to you about how you feel about the art, you will do that with the person or performance on stage. Therefore, in that moment, I'm being objectified. I'm okay with that. However, when I come up to you to your face and you therefore then treat me as an object, that's where there's that's where the line is distinguished for me. Don't treat me like an object. You can objectify me on stage. That's your business, because however you view my art is your interpretation. Anyways, that's my thoughts. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that I I feel like, people objectify other people all the time. Like if you go to if you call like a plumber to come fix your toilet, you're objectifying them in the sense that you don't care about who they are as a person generally. Like you're getting their service and kind of, you know what I mean? So I think, and and this is the thing where it gets tricky, because I felt like I fully understood what objectification meant, and I was willingly putting myself in a situation where I knew people were going to treat me like an object, and I didn't feel like that was a completely negative thing, because I feel like you can objectify someone and also doesn't mean that you're going to treat them like shit, or think that they're not a human and stuff like that. And that, but I think in order to make sure that you are not getting hurt by this kind of like tricky situation, you just really have to have a strong sense of self and boundaries, and realize that you are more than what other people think about you. And I think that it became tricky for me because I hadn't yet progressed in my own life where I felt like, okay, this is what I'm worth. This is what my boundaries are. So, because it can be tricky, because if you're being treated not only by customer but by manage, like, you know, the internet, by fucking culture, as like literally the only thing you're good for is what you look like. But like, don't look like yourself, look like this other thing, like look like this other person. Maybe if you should change, and it's
Yeah.
like that has nothing to do with who I am as a person. So if you believe that too much, then that's where it can get tricky, you know? And that's what happened to me. And I feel like maybe if I entered the industry now, I would feel differently, but I just think people need to think about this and be a little bit more aware. And I think it's hot to be objectified too. Like, you know, we also need to acknowledge that, yeah, we grew up in this system that was like, rewards us for being hot, you know? So like, there's a thing there. I'm like, oh wow, like this person's staring at me and thinks I'm hot. Like that turns me on, and that makes me like, you know, it gives me validation.
Yeah.
But that can't be the only way you're getting validation. It has to remain this like fun extra thing, you know?
Totally. And I think you hit the nail on the head when it's really a lot of it has to do with like you have to understand that you're being objectified and that it's not personal, and you really have to have like deep conversations with yourself to just let it all roll right off the back. Right. Yeah.
And I feel like that's like the hardest part of the job, really. And why strippers that I've met are so intelligent, so strong, like have thought about this stuff all the time. It's because we fucking have to. And most, or a lot of women, maybe like, or normies or whatever, don't really have to think about this stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I always say that being a stripper just magnifies all the good things and all the bad things about being a woman in this like crazy little microcosm. Like, I just feel like in just a few months, like I didn't even strip for a year. And I just feel like I went through like so many ups and downs. And like, I went from being like baby stripper to jaded stripper to I hate men to I hate myself to like, it's just like so much growth in a very short period of time. And not all of it felt awesome, but I feel like I understand fucking humanity so much better now.
So
and I just
better.
Like want other people to learn what I learned.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful to have this platform, to have your voice and other people's voice say all these things to so many people.
Thank you. I'm so grateful that you're doing this. I was like so stoked when I saw you were doing a podcast, because like I said, I've been a fan of yours for years, and
thank you.
Everything you stand for. And
thank you.
Yeah.
Want to be fabulous just like these strippers? Pay attention. It's Stripper Tips.
My stripper tip is that you should just like always carry around a fucking like lacrosse ball or like one of those like peanut things and roll your feet out. Like, and just like all your body. I feel like, yeah, like being a stripper, one of the main things I learned was just like self-care. You have to take care of yourself. You have to treat your muscles properly. And especially if you're going to be wearing heels for any prolonged period of time, you have to take breaks and roll out the soles of your feet. Very important. So yeah.
Very good.
Self-care. Self-care.
Yes.
Balls. Lie on balls.
Lie on balls.
Yes.
Find balls. Step 1, find balls. Step 2, lie on balls.
Yes.
All right.
Get ready for our rapid fire question round. It's time for 4 for 1.
Have you ever peed in public and gotten caught?
I mean, gotten caught. Like I've peed in. Yeah. I mean, I just don't really care if people see me pee in public. So sure, yeah.
Okay.
I used to pee.
You do it often, basically.
Pardon? What's that?
I said, so you do it often, basically.
Well, I used to at festivals would like pee into my cup, like under my dress when I was standing in crowds, and then just dump it on the ground.
Oh my God.
Yes. Yeah. I was gross.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. Have you ever woke yourself up masturbating?
Oh my God, like 2 days ago I did that.
Oh my God, yeah. I'm so jealous.
All the time.
How are you so smart when you sleep?
I also can come in my sleep, which is weird because like I can't come from like just like penetration. So I'm like, why? But yet I can come in my sleep with no anyways.
Okay.
So yeah.
Have you ever blacked out on Four Loko, made out with a fuckboy outside a bar while the nice guy who you actually liked just walked by and saw you making out?
I mean, sure. Like, so when I was a dumb 20 something, I'm sure when I was drunk, like probably a million times. This is why I'm sober. One of the many reasons.
Which would you rather do? Marry, fuck, or kill?
Like any random person?
Anything.
Well, I definitely don't want to kill. So
Okay.
let's just say fuck, I guess. Yeah. I want to kill everyone. That's my stance. Yeah.
All right. You win. You win. Very good. I would choose fuck also, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely don't want to kill, and I definitely don't want to marry.
Yeah.
Just tell everyone how we can find out about you, follow you, find out about what's coming
Right.
up, things like that.
So as of right now, the best place to see what I'm up to is on Instagram. So phoenix.rose.dancer. That's kind of my dancer page. I also have an art page, Sydney_Southam_art. You can also check out that's my real name, Sydney
Yeah.
Southam. I have a website, sydneysouthamart.com. But there's, and hope, by the time this podcast will come out, I'll post more information and clips and links of where you can see the films that we talked about.
Yeah.
And some of the sculptures that I've made. I've made lots of beautiful pleaser ceramic sculptures.
Yes, love them.
That will be offering for sale soon. So yeah, follow me on Instagram and just see what I'm up to. And yeah, if anyone has questions or wants to reach out, I'm always open to talk to whoever about any of this stuff. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And
you're welcome.
You to all of our listeners for always tuning in. And we will speak into your ears next week. Bye.
Yay. Bye.
Thanks so much, girl. That
You're
was
welcome.
Great. Yeah.
Thank
If you
you.
have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email us at yesastripperpodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at yesastripperpodcast. And you can catch the show on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, anywhere that you can find podcasts. We hope you tune in next week. I've been your host, A.M. Davies. See you soon.